I want to do is, I wanted to be of service to you and answer any questions you have. I mean, you all took your time out today to come up to find out more about the project. And given that one of the board members is not here, we'd like to have all five. So that's one of the reasons why we're canceling. However, I took my evening off. You all did too. And I'm all about transparency, so if you want to know about the project, that's why I want to talk to you, or you want to talk to me, and I can tell you more about the project.
Could you give just a brief synopsis of the project?
Sure. Okay, so everybody's familiar with 8853 Old Sappington Road.
Hey, excuse me, just 1 second before you begin. I think we just need to open our meeting and then recognize that you're going to postpone it, and then we'll adjourn formally. And
Yes.
then, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No problem.
Welcome to one quick minute meeting tonight. As I said before, my name is Scott Horson, Tennis Committee.
Morning.
Here.
Scott Michael Bills.
Let you know if they're going to have a forum.
Scott
Or is this unusual?
Ryan Benson. Here. Okay, and Hardy Harson. Here. Okay, we are the four members of the board who are here. The petitioner has said he wants to have a full board,
Okay.
so there will be no meeting tonight, no official action. I understand he wants to hear from you folks.
Thank you.
And so we'll stay around and listen, but nothing will be decided this evening. I will accept the motion to adjourn the meeting.
I move that we adjourn the meeting.
Second?
I second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
So, as I was saying, if there's anything you can do to answer anybody's questions or tell you more about the project, one question I ask, what is the project? Okay, so the project is a single-family house with a bridge structure that's also going to serve as a garage, and then that's it. To give you a little background on myself, I'm a registered professional engineer in the state of Missouri. I was born in St. Louis, South County. I still live in South County. My brother was born in South County. He moved down to Houston, Texas back in the 1970s. He wants to move back to this area where his family is. He happened to finish searching the area as far as a site that he wants to develop. He's a registered architect. And found this site that was available and saw a great opportunity to build this house on this site. Some of the things that are challenges on the site is it's in the floodplain. I know it's an area that's not been developed since the history of Crestwood. And what his approach on the project is to complete what I'd consider to be minimalistic type of development. No fill or very minimal fill on the site. We're looking at, as far as all the requirements that are on the project, such as a no-rise requirement or requirements for the rise of the base flood elevation of the 100-year floodplain, which this project will not impact. We'll also be looking at section 404 permits as far as any regulatory requirements for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Then all the other requirements that are with state of Missouri, city of Crestwood, or any other federal laws and requirements. The house is going to be elevated, so it will not have a traditional type of building structure where you're building a concrete foundation and the house is on top of it. It's going to be more or less on piers like you'd see in a coastal area, and that's to get above the base flood elevation. Access to the site will be at above base flood elevation at all times. I have some drawings. They're only half-size drawings, but I can show them to everybody and we can kind of look at those.
Do they have hydraulic calculations on them?
Yes.
I'd like to see it.
Okay. I don't have the hydraulic calculations with me. What it'll be is, it won't be calculations, it'll be actually an HEC model, HEC2 and HEC RAS model.
Was that submitted to the Board of Adjustment?
That will be submitted to the board.
So it wasn't yet, but it will.
It's actually being done now. The hydraulic analysis has actually been done this week.
So how do you know then, if you are currently doing the hydraulic modeling, whether there will be a rise since that hasn't been performed yet, and what you
No, it's
said-
being performed now.
It's being performed now.
Right,
The vote
and
was
we
gonna
ran a
be
number of
tonight,
different
but
iterations.
The vote was
with-
tonight.
Pardon me?
The vote was tonight, would have been tonight.
Understood. Okay, so the hydraulic analysis is being completed by the state-of-art methods, which is using computer modeling with HEC2 and HEC RAS.
And
When will it be
are
completed?
you performing those, or is it an independent engineering firm licensed with the state of Missouri performing those?
Myself and another engineer.
Okay.
Yes.
So it's not an independent evaluation?
I'm not sure what you mean by that.
Objective?
We will have the model checked by another engineer. So it will have some independent technical review.
That works for your firm, or with your organization, or a separate?
Well, if someone else wants to review our data, absolutely, that's available.
Independent, objective, outside, not part of, not having a dog in the fight.
It's a model. If you get the model and you review the model, I can give it to all of you. And if you want to give it to anybody to review, you most certainly can.
That's not, why would that be our job? To
Well,
review something
so-
that you want?
Let's just put it this way. I will have an independent technical review. That's fine. I can do that.
So my next question would be is how do you plan to put an impervious pad, abutments for a bridge, piers for a walkway, bridge, house, without creating additional fill? How much material are you planning removing from the site?
Those quantities aren't available just yet.
So yet another thing that's
Well,
probably
so-
pertinent for your hydraulic
for
calculations
example,
that you don't yet have.
the abutment from Old Sappington to the bridge would be really the only real significant fill section, if you want to call it significant, probably a few hundred yards of that.
Well, considering that floods on a regular basis, it is a significant area.
Understood. And our objective is to get 0.00 rise at the base flood elevation for this project. That is the objective. Right now, the current model that we're running, 0.01, 0.015, and
And how do you plan to do that, since you're not increasing the size of the culvert that goes underneath Old Sappington? After all, that regulates
Understood.
and dictates your 100-year flood elevation. So
Absolutely.
anything you do on the back end of it, regardless of how much material you
that's the
take
base
around.
flood model. That's exactly right.
Right.
You have the upstream
And you're not
constraints,
changing, you're not
you
changing
have the
that.
downstream constraints. We're not changing
You're not
It's in
changing that
between.
culvert, but you're adding material in between those two.
Absolutely, but you have to understand on the model, the things that you do in the channel can either affect the downstream conditions or upstream conditions. The objective is to find the right balance of the development and what you do in that channel, such that you don't change the upstream and the downstream. You get 0.00, that's the objective of what we're going to do.
But when you're not changing the size of the culvert, which runs underneath Old Sappington or New Sappington, those are your control points. You're not changing that, but you're impacting.
We're not going to be able to improve the flow conditions of that Mulberry Creek
Right.
based upon what is currently
So
there.
anything you do in between it is either going to have a stacking effect that negatively impacts the homes west of New Sappington, or it will have a negative impact on homes on Cornish or on Lodgepole, all of which are within, I would say, less than feet of currently being in the flood elevation and floodplain that would potentially take those property values and throw them right in the trash. So you're looking at
There's two professional engineers that run this model, and the objective is 0.00 rise.
I get
In
what
other
you-
words, if the development is there, there's no impact, versus if it wasn't there.
I get what your
So I
objective
understand
is.
how, what you're saying, that we're going to impact anybody on Cornish or any of the adjacent neighbors.
You don't understand that. You don't understand
No, I-
how putting a bridge abutment and piers and material inside that lot that is currently undeveloped, although your goal is to create a zero rise, the potential that probably isn't going to happen.
Okay, I hear what you're saying.
Because
All
you
right,
haven't
so-
done the modeling yet. So your objective
No.
is, and your
No,
plan
I
is
didn't
to
say
do
that. I said we're about 90% complete with the model, okay? We ran a number of different runs doing different things to optimize the conditions
Sure.
of the development such that we have no impact. For example, the bank of the creek has a lot of debris in it, right? Somebody's been dumping concrete slabs along the outside bend where the bridge is going to be. There's a lot of vegetation that's, I'll call it invasive species.
So you're planning on excavating in the channel then?
No.
Well, if you're talking about removing that
If I
material,
remove a bunch of, I call random fill and debris, concrete slabs, brick, glass, whatever people have dumped there, and now I changed that roughness factor in the model, okay, which is called a Manning's End, such that it's smooth because there's some other surface there, then that changed the hydraulic conditions, okay?
so you're planning on permitting them through Army Corps of Engineers? to get to that
Absolutely,
channel?
absolutely. No, we're not going to do anything under the board. In fact, that's why I'm here today. I want to be a good neighbor to this community, all right?
How do you intend though, because I mean, all that is going to do is affect the conditions upstream from your bridge, because there's gabion baskets the entire length then to Old
Downstream.
Sappington. You can't change anything with that channel. So any softening and curving or contouring you do south or west of the bridge has no impact on what can be flow, the flow pattern and the flow location that is east or north of the bridge. So you can't put an abutment to make a bridge, add piers, widen the one side, let all the water stack up onto that, and then have a bottleneck that's still the exact same thing that it currently is that goes underneath Old Sappington and provide me with hydraulic calculations that said that it's going to be a no rise or create no flooding.
And I'm going to say yes. Yes, we will. And by the way, I'm a professional engineer in the state of Missouri, and my seal will be on there. So I'm not going to seal anything and jeopardize the integrity of my professionalism because of something we're going to do that's not right. Okay?
Well, I can
I'm telling you.
what I'm going to tell you is you could take, let's use traffic studies, for example. You can have a traffic engineer, and I can have 6 traffic engineers do a traffic study, and all 6 of them can give me different modeling, and they're still going to stamp it with their seal.
Right.
So for you to say, I'm stamping this for my brother's development, and it's not going to affect your home, your home, your home, carries no weight with me whatsoever.
This is for, excuse me, this is for your brother's development?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
okay, interesting.
Right.
So I have a couple other questions if we want to continue while we're all still
Sure,
here. The board
absolutely.
can hear and then staff's here. Why
I
are
mean, well, let me ask you this. We're using the state-of-art technology that is used across the entire United States for determining the base flood elevation impacts.
depending on what
stream.
modeling numbers you put
And
in,
so we're
it can be manipulated.
using that standard that's dictated by FEMA. Okay? So we're following what is the state of the art. So I'm not certain all the things that you're kind of suggesting that we're doing that's under the table or whatever.
I'm not suggesting that at all. This is I'm making comments. You're giving your presentation. I'm saying what my concerns and my issues and things that I see as being problems are. There are numerous types of modeling you can use for hydraulic calculations. So depending on what numbers you use with those models, will give you what information you're looking for. I'm not saying that you're going to come in and zero everything out just out of spite or just because of what the developments go through, but a realistic look and approach at it is that the things that you've said to me tonight, I don't see the possibility or potential that can't cause a potential increase, even if it's slight.
Have you done any hydraulic modeling yourself?
I have.
Okay. So you have the main channel, correct? And you have the floodplain. Okay. And so the main channel is where the majority of the velocity and the flow is occurring, correct?
Sure.
And you have a very large floodplain.
Mhm.
And so the percentage, this little amount of fill that's going in that's for the abutment, compared to everything else that's in the model, is having very little effect because it's insignificant.
I don't agree.
Well, that's why.
I also
Would you
haven't
like to be one of the reviewers of the model?
I haven't seen, no, because I'm a resident and I'm not impartial. I'm not independent. So what would be the point of me reviewing it? I don't want to review it. But I haven't seen your construction document either. The only thing that the city had available was 2 architectural renderings for this meeting.
Okay.
So I don't know if anything else was submitted to the city, but that's what the city.
That's all that was required for this variance meeting.
And that's incorrect. So, I mean, you're required to submit a site plan. If you're asking the Board of Adjustment for a variance for a 10-foot encroachment, you have to establish a site plan showing where the property line is and where the encroachment of the bridge
Those were
is.
provided to the city.
Okay, well, that wasn't, again, I said what was provided to the public.
I
to
don't know
view
what 2 drawings you have. in other words.
Was 2 architectural
Okay.
renderings.
Okay.
Okay, so that's
Okay.
what I said.
There was a site plan with the variances that we're requesting, which is for zoning R3, it's 35 feet.
For front yard setback.
Front to setback, that's correct. And so what we're requesting is 25 feet versus 35 feet. And a lot of the more recent development in the city of Crestwood is 25 feet in other distances, but anyhow.
Not true.
That is what we're requesting.
That's not.
That's not
That's not
correct.
correct?
That's not correct.
Well, then I stand corrected then, because I thought
The
some of the information I got on some of the
Sappington
developments in Crestwood were within
Sappington
that
Villas.
25 foot. Now, it may not have been zone
PDR.
R3.
Planned development residential.
Okay.
Those are attached
Okay.
houses
Okay.
that do not require side
Well,
yard
scratch
setbacks.
that. I stand corrected. When I'm wrong, I'm wrong.
Okay.
Okay, then I.
The other
okay.
issue is that's a front yard setback requirement.
Right.
The front yard is determined by the front profile of the house. Therefore, your front yard is wherever the building or structure is intended to go. So you have a 35-foot front yard setback that you're not supposed to construct in, but your front building line goes all the way back across the creek, wherever the front of your building is.
Okay.
So there's also a section of code that prohibits any accessory structure, including sheds or detached garage,
Okay.
from being constructed in the front yard.
And that, I think, is the case here.
So
This is the accessories.
that was not a variance that you were going for tonight. So how can you have one variance without the other?
Good question. I'm here to represent my brother, and he's been working with the
Right.
city of Crestwood,
So,
which mentioned the variance on the accessory structure,
So-
which is the covered bridge.
we would
And so
potentially,
that's what we're.
a covered bridge that you're planning on using as a garage,
That's
a
correct.
detached garage.
Detached garage.
So we're potentially
Right.
setting a precedence
You gotta be
that if a homeowner wants to construct a detached garage in another area that's not in a floodplain, that, maybe the Pandora's box has been opened, so I can put a shed in my front yard or a detached garage or anything for that matter.
And so is there a problem with detached garage in Crestwood?
No, not if you put it in the rear of your property. They're required strictly to be in the rear yard, not in the side yard or in the front yard. Should I keep going?
Keep going, please. I mean, I'm here to really
Is this
answer
how,
anybody's questions they have.
it's my
And
perception,
and I'm going to answer the questions the best I can, because obviously,
I do know that in the city of Crestwood, building ahead of the building line has been allowed in some cases, not to this extreme. But if you go over on Etherton, I believe the name of the street, as you're going around the curve in Etherton, there's a house, they extended the garage out, I don't know, 5-6 feet past the building line.
Attached
It was
garage?
past
it's
by
an
4
attached
seconds.
garage.
Attached garage.
It's attached garage.
An attached
Garage.
garage.
Talking about a
It was an extension
detached.
of the house, but it was ahead of the building line.
But it was
But it was
attached.
attached garage.
We're
But
talking
this is not attached to
we're
the
talking
house.
about a whole other building here.
I understand.
So let's go to our next issue, or a variance that wasn't requested. How about the buffer and setback requirements? Anything that has a blue line channel requires a 50-foot vegetated buffer with an additional 25-foot of impervious material planting. So therefore, you have a 75-foot, a horizontal from each bank barrier that construction is prohibited. So that wasn't a variance that was requested. So how do you construct a bridge and have a 75-foot stream bank protection area that you can't construct in?
how were they able to construct the box culverts under Open Sappington and New Sappington?
Those are for public use. This is for private.
And you have to state the city requirement here. I'm not sure I understand. the
20
requirement.
26 455A1 and A2. And for future reference, 26455B3 requires no less than roughly 8 different items to be submitted to the city, including an alternative plan in which you don't encroach in that 75-foot buffer.
So the 75-foot buffer again is a riparian zone?
It is a stream bank protection area.
Okay,
That
well,
is
I'm
supposed to
glad
be
you
made-
actually brought that up. So
Supposed to be
if we're
maintained.
not defoliating any part of the creek except just put the bridge in and this abutment, and we're not gonna defoliate, which means remove any of the trees on site except for very minimal, except for right where that abutment has to go for the bridge, are we meeting this requirement?
No,
Why not?
75 feet. That
I'm
you-
not changing
That
anything.
you can't have any impervious cover for 75 feet. So your parking pad that you went out on Old
I'm
Sappington,
not putting a culvert there.
I didn't say a culvert. You have an abutment for the bridge, you have a parking pad, a U-shaped parking pad. Those are all impervious surfaces that you're putting in that setback and that buffer requirement.
Okay.
So that's 4 items that require variance that haven't been submitted yet.
Okay.
Want me to keep going?
Absolutely.
Okay, let's go to section 10-4, provision for flood hazard reduction. And I'll be back at the next meeting, so this can all be on permanent record for everyone.
But don't give them everything.
Storage material and equipment, storage or processing of materials with special flood hazard area that are in time of flooding buoyant, flammable. How you can put a car that has gasoline parked on a bridge over a river that frequently floods without it creating a hazard potentially if a projectile hits the car, knocks the abutment down, collapses the bridge, and has a car floating down to Old Sappington. That's also prohibited.
And so everything is above the base flood elevation, so I don't understand your.
The abutments to the bridge are above the base flood elevation.
The cars will be parked.
The abutments to the bridge that support the cars are going to be above the base flood elevation.
Correct.
They are,
Yes, they are.
so they're going to float.
It's a causeway.
So so it's 3 feet above the flood, so how?
That's fine. We don't have to get into it too much.
Okay.
Then we can move to 7-12, resident not appropriate to the area, where your conformity of the house has to be consistent with the other structures and houses in the neighborhood.
Mhm.
Therefore, the Director of Public Works, if he gets a submittal, and there are numerous, caveats, but we'll go with the one where a building is to be constructed without a basement, and at least 75% of the homes in the vicinity, or 75% of the homes in the immediate vicinity are constructed have basements. Then the Director of Public Works has to refuse even accepting your permit. So one, again, I understand you can't put a basement there without increasing the flood elevations, but clearly by code, you can't construct a house without a basement, which is why in 60 years, no one has ever built on that property. My
Is that the
suggestion,
reason?
because of all the code requirements that.
Or is it perhaps maybe the person that owned the property for as long as they have?
No,
every
this happens, but you're not the first guy.
This is like the
Exactly.
third time in 12 years since we've lived.
What I
there.
would tell your brother, what your brother should do is, I think the sale was contingent on approval of this. Your brother should end the sale. He should go to the property owners and try to recoup whatever money that you guys have put out on it. Because those homeowners or the property owners are aware of these regulations. They
I
tried
personally educated them on it.
They've tried to
Okay,
construct it.
okay.
The city has issued stop work orders more than one occasion for that property. Clearing, again, because it was completely vegetated, maintaining that buffer, 75 feet, that the current homeowners or property owners went in and began clearing everything. So if it wasn't for those actions, there would have been a lot more that you would have had to clear besides, the part that has been cut out or been pushed open in that area. So that's all I have for your submittal. I have other issues for the planned meeting for tonight, and the presentation of lack of agenda being posted, the notice to the residents that everyone received Monday, less than 3 days until the meeting, where you're typically supposed to get a 15-day notice. So there are numerous other issues that is
Well, I'll just tell you this. I want to be as transparent as I can. My brother's the same way.
Right.
Anything that we're doing, I want to share with everyone. We're not here to ram something down the community's throat that they don't want, okay? I mean, if you really don't want us here, I'll convey that back to my
Are
brother.
you getting the sense that
Okay.
we want you here?
Pardon?
Are you getting the sense yet that we want you here?
I'm not getting a sense that you want us here, but let's just put it this way.
It's nothing personal. It's nothing. It's
No,
nothing.
I'm not
If you're
making it
designed-
personal.
It isn't
I
personal, because there'll
really
be
think-
another one after you, and
I'm
another
just
one after
curious,
you.
what is the reasoning that your brother has? I'm just curious, spending all this money and all this effort in that plot of land. What is it about there? You could
You know
go,
what,
no,
it's
but you could
it's
go,
simple.
and for
It's
what
a
you're gonna
1.5
spend,
It's absolutely beautiful.
1.5
It is an
acres
oasis
for
in
$30,000.
It's a vacant,
It's not an oasis.
it's a vacant piece of property that can be developed is
And
what
this
it
approach
is.
is to minimize any
Yeah.
excessive development on the site. And that's his whole approach on this thing is, and I don't want to go over my brother's resume, but his approach to that site is to do the very minimal thing he needs to do in order to build a structure to live in. That is what he's wanting to do. He's looked at all kinds of alternatives, putting garages behind the structure, doing a number of different things, and the one that he's arrived at now was his optimized solution. So he's
Which
done
is-
an alternative analysis.
Which obviously is best for him, which is great, except when you start taking a look at ordinances, and we're gonna be asking for, just listen, and I'm gonna throw out 6 to 8 variances and ordinances. I'm gonna tell you something about that creek. This is not a place where you wanna start making variances and changing things, because when you get a couple of branches, and I'm not joking, a couple of branches that hit the culvert at Old Sappington and Cornish, Old Sappington floods and Cornish floods. And that's just a couple of branches in regular rain. So how you can explain it however you want, I'm just simply saying, if you can do everything you want to do back there, I would say if you can do it with no variances, good luck. But when you start asking for variances, I see you impacting people that have been living in that neighborhood for a whole lot longer than your brother's been living there. And I don't think it's a real good idea, because you can't undo what you're fixing to do. You start putting stuff over the creek and it's not done right, you can't go, oh gosh, sorry, when their basement floods, my basement floods, his basement floods. You know, that's not being a good neighbor. I see a piece of property that can be developed, and golly, it's a great price, and I want in. That's what it is. It's not an oasis.
It is an oasis.
No, it's
I'm
a great
telling you.
price because he couldn't do the current homeowner couldn't do what he wanted to do with it. And the one who he bought it from couldn't do what they wanted to do with it either.
We've seen plans.
And we've entertained at least 20 to 30 other people walking around willy-nilly through our property, taking advantage of, whatever they want to do to try to talk us into giving up a part of our property so they can drive right next to our house back to this oasis.
If your brother pulls this off, and I'm not saying he can't, I'm just saying if he does, he will be doing what no one else has been able to do, which, is entirely possible. But I think the message you need to convey to your brother is that it may not have been presented as thoroughly and accurately to him as it should have been, and because he's an out-of-towner, maybe the presentation as to why he should buy the property should have been a little more thorough. And were he aware of everything involved in this, which the people who own it should be by now, he may have thought twice, or maybe he wouldn't. But to me, it's only fair for the buyer to know what they're up against, and I get the feeling he wasn't told the whole story. And that's my 2 cents.
To be honest with you, probably what should happen is the current property owners should quit paying their taxes on it and let it revert back to St. Louis County. St. Louis County isn't going to touch it. It's going to vegetate and sit there, and nobody's going to do anything with it. or if the city, which I know the city is strapped for cash and they don't have money, they could make them a monetary offer, maybe $5,000 for the lot, we'll take it off your hands, and they can just sit there and let it vegetate, and nobody develop on it. That's really the only thing that you're gonna be able to do to guarantee 100% that there's not a negative impact. Because again, I understand, look, I get the modeling of what you're gonna do, and you're looking at 1% and 0.2%, you're 100 and 500, as way back down the road.
Right.
But as everybody here has seen over, and you for being in the St. Louis area, Merrimack River, historic, 82, 93, 2015. So, I mean, and that creek tops Old Sappington frequently.
It didn't this last flood, though.
No, because the culvert was cleared.
Right.
Because I called this spring.
Because I was down there, that's the reason why.
And the
I was there
public-
Saturday and Sunday when we got the
And the
rainfall. I was expecting it.
The
It's like,
Public
okay, let's
Works
see what this
Department
delivers. Okay.
cut a 24-inch tree that floated down into that.
Okay.
So, I mean, that's large material that's coming through that culvert,
Understood.
coming through that channel.
Oh, I agree. Well, to give you a little more background on my brother, he's very meticulous on maintaining his property, which would mean also the creek. And so his own approach on it would actually go into the creek and remove every foreign, unnatural thing that's been dumped in the creek, and also maintain its conveyance, which would mean if there is a tree that is fallen down in between the two box culverts, he would clean that up and keep the site clean.
That's great after event, but as
No,
you-
it's during.
As you can't get in that creek during the event.
I agree.
If you're moving a 24-inch tree that gets wedged in that culvert during an event, that's why we get the overtopping. That's why you get the stacking.
But
and he's not going to be able to do that during.
But let's just speak of it. So, okay, if the tree would fall between New Sappington and Old Sappington, yeah, it would make sure it's gone. If it's upstream of New Sappington, how would it get through the box culvert that would come down and we didn't know it was there, would cause a problem on Old Sappington? I guess I'm trying to understand the scenario in which
The New Sappington culvert's slightly larger, I think, than the Old Sappington culvert, and depending on how the flow is happening, it can pass through one without the other. It can pass through Old Sappington culvert and get down to Graboid Creek or the bridge downstream or something in the wedge. So it's just
A lot of it's got to do with the way it angles.
I mean, it's unbelievable.
I know it moves. I've been there a couple times now in the last 3 months, and no, understood, absolutely. I just want to say we don't do anything that's so environmentally responsible, trying to minimize any impacts to the site, minimize any impacts to the floodway or to the flow in the creek. Do everything in our power to keep it so it doesn't flood for these debris backups and things like that.
You're saying a lot of the right things. You're hitting all the good
You know what?
buzzwords. But
He doesn't not want to. Well,
what you're
he's
not-
got consequences himself if this
what
does
you're
happen.
not addressing is all of the variances that you're going to continue to be needing,
Well,
which is
I am going to meet
which
with the city of Crestwood tomorrow, or give them at least a call. I have to work tomorrow, but and go through these variances because the only one I thought we had to address was really the setback. So that's what we were doing. I would address every one of anybody's concerns. I mean,
Is a house,
we don't want to put anything there that's going to be a problem.
is a house on stilts kind of out of character with the neighborhood?
Very.
Well, it wouldn't have a basement.
Well, when he said on piers, I'm thinking stilts to get it up.
It is.
like-
It would be like the river houses along the Merrimack.
That's what I was envisioning. Yeah.
You know, I guess maybe if the rest of us wanted.
So that would have a
houses
direct,
on
that could have a
stilts.
direct
Well, I think
impact
we
on
have to
your
put our
housing
houses
value.
on stilts if they're going to have all these abutments.
Could you tell me what your name is again?
My name is Gary Lee.
So the house on stilts could have a direct impact on your property values because it's so out of character with the neighborhood. Potential? I don't know.
We've been told it's going to be an award-winning design. So.
Award-winning design doesn't do anything with the character of the neighborhood.
You will be in, John and Lisa, you will be in the floodplain when this.
Yes, we will.
So all of a sudden, like Tim was saying, your property value plummets, your insurance rates soar.
So Gary, we're coming after you personally.
I mean, I didn't.
Listen, my seal is gonna be on these documents. and
Right,
I
and
with the
that's
city
why
and
we're coming
FEMA.
after you.
So absolutely, and I don't think this lightly.
Well, and I'm trying to
Yeah, and the
get,
Carson
you
City
made a comment
project
about
was a
how your
better-
brother would be, you know, cleaning the creek, and so is that gonna set a precedent that, you know, if, you know, he's gonna be the creek keeper and?
Well, he was-
Well, I just say this, I
can't
just
do
say it's just basically his own hobbies. That,
But he's
He
not
will
here
keep-
6 months of the year, so he's just gonna do this in the
Pardon me?
summertime? Your brother told us personally that he wasn't going to be in town, but only 6 months of the year.
he'll
So
be
the 6
occupying
months
the
while
rest
we're
of it.
struggling through the floods and the backup of the water, he's in Costa Rica
he'll be here
or
90% of the
Miami.
time. Now, 10% of the time, he was
He told
January,
us, he told us
February.
personally,
Okay.
standing on our front porch, 6 months of the year he would be away with friends, partying it up somewhere.
So, yeah, I mean, there's,
And that his $3 million art collection would be housed in this home. So we heard a lot directly
We'll
from your
bring up
brother.
at the police board meeting. We'll make sure it's protected.
I learned a lot about this in the last 72 hours because prior to my knowing about all this, I was coming here really hoping that he'd get it, that he'd get the house. Because I was all for it, because I didn't realize how hard it was to build there. I knew it was hard, but I figured, well, it can't be that hard. Somebody's going to do it. Let's have it be this guy because he seems like he really knows what he's doing. I had no idea that there were that many variants. I had no idea. So this is all, I learned a lot in the last couple of days. So,
See, you know, there aren't rules like that in unincorporated St. Louis County or Jefferson County or other places, and maybe that's where he needs to look. If he truly wants to do all these magnificent things, maybe that's where he needs to look instead of trying to make all these variances and all these adjustments to a piece of property that it really doesn't fit on. But he seems damned and determined to fit something on that plot of land that it doesn't fit without all these variances and,
Well,
you know.
he was due diligent and worked with the city of Crestwood. Give me all your requirements. He looked at them all. What I just heard were additional requirements over what was provided me by
They're
the
not new
city.
ones.
I
We haven't changed statutes or
understand,
ordinances.
and I don't know about the merit of any of the variances that applies to this site or not. I mean, that's up to the city to determine. In fact, I'd like to get a copy of this if you wouldn't mind.
I guess if
Well,
any.
the city's right there, ask them.
They could probably provide all that for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or if they want to take a copy of what I have back and Xerox it off for you real quick and then bring it back.
Our planner's sitting right there. He should be able to tell you.
This is just my observation, but the one thing that you're not going to be able to get around is one that was brought up about these basements.
You mean the conformity?
Yeah, you're not going to be able to get.
I don't know if that's,
You can't get a
I'm not on
variance.
the planning committee. I don't know what their degree or what their definition of what conformity would be.
I will, if you want a little bit further, while everyone's here and he's making copies. Conformity with other residents, the Director of Public Works shall inspect all plans of residents submitted to him with applications for building permits, and if he finds and determines that a proposed building plat calling for construction of a residential districts as established by zoning regulations, which has a cubicle content of at least 25%, less than 75% or more of the residents with the immediate vicinity of the lot on which the building is to be erected, or if the building is to be constructed without a basement and at least 75% of other residents in the immediate vicinity have basements, or if the general appearance of the house, due to its size, height, material used in construction or ground area, is wholly out of keeping with such percentage of other houses in the immediate vicinity, the Director of Public Works shall refuse to issue a building permit. You can't go to the Board of Adjustment for a variance. In order to appeal this, you have to appeal within 30 days directly to, I think it's the Board of Aldermen. okay, hold on. If a building permit is refused by the Director of Public Works as herein authorized, and the builder is unwilling to accept the suggestions and recommendations for alterations or modifications made by the Director, the builder may, within 30 days of date of refusal, appeal to the Board of Aldermen for a review of the Director's decision. So you can't even go to the Board of Adjustment for a variance. And there is no gray area in here. I mean, that's pretty straight, flat out. You have to construct a basement. How do you construct a basement in a floodplain without making a rise? You can't
You can do that by providing enough openings.
Well, I would.
I flood-proof structures, I understand.
I get it. I get it. Okay, again, we don't need to get into the semantics of it.
Okay.
But so then you appeal to the Board of Aldermen, and then they would hear it.
Okay.
So unfortunately, I think when your brother actually submitted this and talked with the city in November or December, or whenever he submitted it, the city should have rejected it, and we shouldn't have gone through this process with the residents and yourself and your brother, and then these steps could have been taken.
Well, was the whole building plan submitted, or was it just the plan for the setback and the bridge?
I believe some drawings have been submitted, maybe not the entire set of construction plans and specs, because they're still being developed. I mean, it's probably 75 to 90% complete. You need to submit those when you're at the 100% level. So he's working on details like HVAC and getting a lot of requirements from contractors and things like that to make sure he has a complete set. But for the most part, the site plan is pretty set. It's a lot of the construction drawings for the buildings themselves that's going to be finalized.
And the site plan was submitted to the Board of Adjustment. The Board of Adjustment received a site plan, or just an architectural rendering.
We got pictures, we do not have a blueprint. The building that they were talking about, excluding what we had on the agenda tonight, is not a part of our agenda. As far as the house, that's not a part of our agenda.
Right.
No, but you need a site plan to show the distance that the bridge/shed is from the property line to verify that it.
We do have that.
It was provided.
With a surveyor's engineer seal on it.
No.
No, but it can.
Architectural seal?
Architectural site plan. It has some dimensions. It's not the surveyors.
What architectural seal?
It's my belief.
From the state of Texas. So you really can't submit sealed plans from the state of Texas in the state of Missouri. And I think you, as a professional engineer,
I can see those plans.
Well, you could, but you didn't. So your brother submitted sealed drawings in the state of Missouri with a Texas seal.
Or you could appeal to the state of Missouri and get a seal here. I mean,
No, I get it.
Okay.
Right, but those are the.
But you didn't. I mean, that's what I guess the point
understood,
is.
understood,
That's the point.
understood.
It just seems like we're still playing real fast and loose and cutting corners.
Well, we don't want to play fast and loose, and that's why I'm
But that's
standing
what-
up here.
okay,
I'm
but-
taking my time out of this
That's
evening.
great, and I
know you
appreciate
all
you
are
taking
too.
your time.
I
But you're taking your time because you have a want. The end game you want is you want that property developed. Don't say no,
Okay.
because that would be a lie.
Okay.
You have a want. That's why you're taking your time. We're taking our time because we have a concern. Okay,
Understood.
from where you're standing, you're seeing certain things. From where I'm sitting, I'm seeing that you're playing a little fast and loose and you're cutting corners. That's my perception. Now, you can argue and say you're not, but when we're getting plans that are coming from out of state, when we're getting things kind of tossed out there and we're not addressing variances, and when we're putting things up and we're not, it just seems like you don't have the whole thing figured out yet. You've got some great concepts, but concepts aren't the same as reality. And when we start cutting corners and we start playing loose and we hope it's good enough and we hope it's right, houses get flooded. And we probably won't be real good neighbors then.
So, on the application for the Board of Adjustment, it says a site plan of the property drawn to scale showing the location of all the structures located on the property. The site plan should be shown the distance between the existing structures and property. I mean, it listed all out elevations drawn to scale, depictions of proposed structures. So I don't know, again, that's another issue I think that is related to information that's been provided to the residents by the city. If we come up to view plans for a public hearing, we should probably get more than just the application and maybe 2 architectural renderings. I mean, if the commission has a complete site plan, that should have been made available to the residents to view before the public hearing as well. Again, because then we all are sitting here in the dark, kind of wondering what happened. You know, the gentleman that was sitting here is like, what exactly are you doing? Because that information and what you're submitting should be available.
You know, the other issue you're running into is you're going to ask for variance for the bridge. Okay, to cross that hurdle, there's still, what, 5, 6 more hurdles when you start actually building on the property. At any point in time, the city may say, no, we don't want to grant that variance. Where are you going to be then? From a perspective, if I was the builder, I would want
that makes
all
me
of
very
this in
concerned.
place.
Absolutely.
Because you don't want to spend the time, the energy, the money
Right.
that it's going to take to get that garage, bridge, whatever the hell it is, built, only to find out that you can't do anything on the other side of it because there are certain ordinances that aren't going to allow that to happen. And, you know, quite frankly, that was probably, you know, should have been due diligence on your brother's part, looking into the ordinances a little bit more closely, because every municipality has them. That's why I was saying, in unincorporated St. Louis County and Jefferson County and the surrounding counties, when you're in unincorporated areas, the building restrictions are a lot less stringent. But when you start getting into municipalities, there are things, a way, a place for a reason, and I don't know that you get around all of those.
So another quick question. How are you planning on constructing and accessing the area to build a house?
It would probably be over the covered bridge.
It'd be over the covered bridge. So that's another, and you'll see when you get that no accessory building or structure shall be used prior to the principal building. So this Board of Adjustment technically isn't supposed to grant you a variance for an accessory structure when a primary structure
But I
is not
could
even-
put a temporary low water crossing that would probably be
No.
acceptable and apply for a variance. I mean,
No.
I'm just asking.
But those are things like if I was.
No, absolutely.
I would
But-
can't
ask,
drive through
You
our
asked
property
a straight
either.
question, 3 answers over the covered bridge.
How about, from a public safety standpoint, what kind of access is fire and police going to have to this property should there be a need to respond to this property?
because the rendering
Like
has.
they would for anybody else's property.
No, like they would
it
for
fit
anybody
through-
else's property,
would
they'd
a
be
fire
able to
truck
park on
fit
the
through a covered
street.
bridge?
On the street,
Uh-huh.
and then come across the covered bridge.
No.
through the covered bridge. and
No,
on-
truck has to be, the bridge has to sustain a fire truck.
No, our truck is not set to go across. The reason for the fill, if you want to call it, on Old Sappington is so the fire truck can park there. And they can go through the garage, carport, whatever you want to call it, and get to the structure inside it. The bridge is not set to hold a fire
Because the
truck.
equipment's not going to get back to the house, I'll tell you that.
You will,
It's too far.
They won't get it off the road.
in part of our notes.
They won't take it off the
The
road.
fire chief evidently looked at this, it was suitable to him to park the truck next to the access to the bridge.
Not knowing, of
Fire
course, all
hydrant
of
right across
the
street,
restrictions on what you can
And
do.
get to the.
No, he
So
was.
the fire chief looked at
He
this,
doesn't.
and from his point of view, access to the building was okay. But he would not take his truck there, no way.
So could 1214 get through that bridge?
No,
Nope.
Well, then you have to have a minimum 1214, and commercial ambulances have to be able to transgress it.
I think also too, I think part of the, part of the concerns is if you look at it objectively, and I don't want anything to happen to you or your brother, but say you get the bill, the variance is approved for the bridge. You guys get the bridge in place, we're gonna start constructing the house. even though you can't have the bridge without the house being there per code. You get the bridge built, you guys are flying back and forth, something happens, plane crashes. Again, those are hypotheticals, but you no longer own the property, and now there is a bridge with no building. And that bridge sits there in perpetuity indefinitely because nobody else is, again, going to be able to get through this, even if that variance was granted, which is why that section is in there. You have to have a primary structure, you have to have a residence, it has to be in place and defined before you start asking for reaches to the side, to the rear, to the front, so that primary is in place. So I would think that, you know, that's in the code pretty clear that most of the Board of Adjustment has experienced that through permitting. I mean, because they've never permitted or granted a variance for something that didn't have a primary structure existing. So again, that's just, it's stacking hurdle on top of hurdle on top of hurdle. And so let's say you come through with your design. And I don't know if this is a question for the city attorney, and it may be because I'm not an attorney, I don't have legal background. You come through, the city grants you 6 variants. The Board of Adjustment grants you the 6 or 7 variances you needed. The director denies your permit, your actual physical permit for construction, and then the board either approves it or they deny it, and then you go to circuit court and county and they approve it. So board has granted you variances, either Crestwood Board or the St. Louis County Court approves it, and then we have an epic event, and there's a catastrophic failure or something happens, and John's house floods, or Mary's house floods, or somebody else's house floods. Who would be liable for them to go after for compensation to be made whole? Would that be the homeowners? Would that be the city for granting 6 variances? Would that be, you know, who's liable?
You didn't change the hydraulic conditions on the site. That's where you're going.
There weren't hydraulic changes on any sites in Valley Park or in Arnold or in Fenton or in Sunset Hills.
Right.
And there's houses that are not in floodplain, not even close to floodplain, that don't have flood insurance, that had 4 feet of water. So
No, I understand. But how are those people, like I said, who do they sue? It's a risk based upon where you live, right?
well, but unless somebody,
Comes
Change the
in and gets
conditions.
buried.
That's right, that's right.
right.
So, again, I'm trying to see how that
The only
is
conditions,
applicable to the site.
so the only conditions that will have changed from now and the past 30, 40 years is what you will have be doing or may have
So if we
done.
haven't changed the hydraulic conditions of this site, because the minimalistic approach to the development, then we haven't changed it.
You've put additional obstructions within the floodway and the floodplain. So you've put additional blockades. Say you haven't changed, you do the modeling and you haven't changed.
So
the
if a new
hydraulic-
tree grows up on the site in the floodplain, that could theoretically impact the conveyance, right?
Sure,
If you grew a lot of trees, that could impact the conveyance, right?
sure.
Okay. So when you look at the entire floodplain of Mulberry Creek, and what he's doing is such insignificant that it's not causing a rise, like I said, 0.00 feet for the base flood elevation, 100-year flood. I'm not understanding, what's the, I mean, you're suggesting that there's going to be impacts on folks because of this, and I'm not understanding.
Okay.
Okay,
Based
based upon science and engineering, I'm not understanding
Okay.
that.
I mean, from a homeowner, I don't know, I can't speak to the homeowners, and I really can't speak to the city either. I've never looked at that specific issue. I know, I mean, cities build bridges all the time. I don't know in terms of if our granting a variance, I would give the city any liability if we follow the you know, the terms of the code for granting the variance, so I would have to look at that.
Okay.
But from a homeowner's perspective, I mean, that would be something the homeowner would need to look at as well.
Hey, what size house you building on there?
So,
How many square feet?
it's 2 stories. It's approximately 3,200 square feet.
Is it going to be built on a wood or brick or?
It's gonna be a reinforced concrete slab, first level, radiant heat. The exterior is looking at different materials, different sustainable materials. He's looking at lead. I'm not sure if he's silver or gold. He's still looking at a lot of different alternative materials.
Is it pretty contemporary home, you know?
It is. It is kind of your mid-century type architecture that you're seeing is becoming popular again. You know,
Would you consider that this house is in conformity with 75% of the neighboring properties?
I think I would. In the city of Crestwood, there's quite a few mid-century modern homes.
Not in the city.
Come on.
There's not?
In the city of
Around
Crestwood
area.
And right around that area, no way.
Within, let's say within 5, because the radius that the city
That's
uses.
a disingenuous answer.
So my
Within
Craftsman
5
house, right?
I appreciate your
Okay,
answer.
okay, so let's say change it to a Craftsman style house, okay?
500 feet.
I don't know if it would still meet your requirement.
500.
Because you know why? There's no Craftsman style houses around your area. So would you stop building the house because it's a different architectural style?
There's no house on stilts either.
That's what the code says.
How high are the stilts? How high up will it be set?
It'll be 4 feet above the base flood elevation, so I had to look on the site plan. It's probably like 5 feet, 6 feet.
5 feet
Something like that?
in a 2-story house, so you'll be how far above grade?
Well, 2 stories above 5, 6 feet.
So you're looking at like 26, 27 feet, depending on.
I'd have to look at his plans and give you the exact dimensions.
So I apologize to everybody because I missed that. That would be yet another variance that would exceed the maximum height allowed for.
But if you were standing on Old Sappington looking into the site,
It makes
the
no
roof
difference.
line would be
And if I were
at or
to-
probably lower than the
And
single
if
story structures in the
if I
around
were
the neighborhood.
standing in South St. Louis at the highest point, it would be different too. We're not talking about that.
It's from
Yeah,
grade.
so-
Again, your answers are vague
So there's
and
not a
somewhat
two-story house on Old
disingenuous.
Sappington Road?
I believe there is.
Okay, so why is this non-conforming?
Again, I don't have your plans, but there is a height restriction, maximum allowable height from grade. So the house that's currently on Old Sappington, at least on 2 to 3 sides at grade, probably when it was constructed, either was prior to that ordinance going into effect or met the requirements. But that section is currently in effect, your house is not constructed, so that would be another one. You have that list. Another one I would look at is maximum allowable height, because potentially, and it's from grade, so if you're putting it on stilts, you're raising it 4 feet above flood elevation, which at that point, I don't know how high the house is from grade, if that's 10 feet to get it 4 feet above flood elevation, and then you're building a 2-story house that's 30 feet. So that's.
We'll look at that.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
seven.
absolutely,
That's 7.
absolutely. I don't want to be arguing. We'll take a look at it and whatever the requirements are for the city.
You know, right down the street or the house for sale has got 2 acres. That would be a nice spot, wouldn't it?
I don't know if it was the site. you're
Yeah,
talking
right
about.
down the street.
It's an oasis.
I mean,
Yeah.
It is an oasis.
Well-
And there's no floodplain, and there is no creek that runs through it. Yeah, it's just, you got a church that backs up to it.
so I know what the creek is, well, anyhow.
No, we've come to live with the creek. It's just all the variances that we're starting to take issue with. Because the creek's been there for a long, long time and hadn't asked for a single one variance.
Right,
The
after we're all gone.
The problem is that the city goes through a maturation with staff, and the institutional knowledge that has been or was with the city for 15 plus years, Jim Eckridge, Pat Haynes, other individuals that have dealt with that lot and understand the complexity of that lot and have worked with individuals who have purchased the house, individuals that have tried to develop the house. that's not with the city anymore. So again, I kind of feel sorry for your brother, for you. You came out and clearly all the things that I've listed, you guys had no clue. I would assume you had no clue. I would not like to presume that you guys knew it and just thought, nah, we'll go by it. Went to the city.
No,
You submitted.
we're not gonna do anything that is a requirement on the site. I can tell
You were
that.
not given the complete picture or the complete number of ordinances, and that's just, it's a maturation that happens. The property owners sell, they'll attempt to sell the property. I don't know what the asking price, I know at some point they were trying to get rid of it for 20 or 30 grand. For 1.5 acres, it's a steal. I understand why somebody would want to buy it. Lindbergh School District, you got kids, 1.5 acres for 30 grand. It's that for a reason, because for the past 60 plus years, even though not all of the regulations have been in place, but it has been to this point undevelopable without substantial number of variances needed, and or vote from Board of Aldermen, vote from this, vote from that, so.
Okay. Anybody have any other questions? We'd like to be your neighbor, but we'll see how it goes. Okay? Serious.
Thank you for that.
No, you're welcome. You're welcome. Yeah, we'll see you in a month.
Okay.
Because we'll be here.
Will your brother be here?
He probably will. And I think I may bring